The way a case like that would get brought back up to the Supreme Court is by a state or multiple states changing their laws, which is currently happening in the United States right now.
To go back a couple months ago, and this is just like a blank in my knowledge that I'm hoping you guys can help me fill, talking about Roe v. Wade, because this was like a very hot button issue recently with Amy Coney Barrett, right? Of like, is it going to be overturned? And now like nobody's talking about it. So are we in the clear? Like, forgive me if this sounds like a silly question, but like, are we good? Should we still be worried? What are we doing? Where are we at?
This is a hard question to answer, given the vagueness of pretty much any conservative Supreme Justice's answers to kinds of questions like this. The last I checked, Amy Coney Barrett does not believe that Roe v. Wade qualifies as what the Supreme Court often terms as a super precedent, like a super precedent case.
Mm-hmm.
Super precedent case basically is believed to be like unchallengeable.
Mm-hmm.
So in her admission of that, in admitting that she doesn't believe that this is a super precedent, she believes that this is a case that that has the capacity to be reopened. In her very vague statements that she made, mind you, she was saying that even though she doesn't believe it's a super precedent, she also doesn't necessarily think that means it would be overruled. However, she clearly believes that like the case is challenge worthy. So that's just something that we're kind of being constantly vigilant of. Is it an active threat? I can't say. Is it kind of like a looming concern in the background? Generally speaking, yes. I mean,
right.
I think so.
And building off of what Kate said, so the problem with having someone who is very vague on something that impacts more than half the people in this country, the way a case like that would get brought back up to the Supreme Court is by a state or multiple states changing their laws, which is currently happening in the United States right now. There's 2 states that have written these horrendous laws, and one is still being voted on, but one was just put into law, I believe. It's in one of the southern states. And basically it says absolutely no, in no circumstances is abortion okay unless the mother's life is in danger. So that's something that most likely will be challenged. And if it works its way up to the Supreme Court, the more people you have that are wishy-washy on answering those questions, it is something to be concerned about, and definitely something to keep your eye on, because like here in Pennsylvania, this isn't our law. That doesn't mean that it won't, like another state changing their laws can very much so impact the folks in Pennsylvania as well.
I would say the bigger threat is new cases related to reproductive rights making their way to the Supreme Court and then ending up in front of these judges who have these conservative ideologies that could be, potentially guiding their judicial decisions, I mean, in Pennsylvania, to speak to states changing laws, I mean, there have been multiple attempts in this state to introduce basically anti-abortion rights laws. I mean, there was just one in like 2 years ago called the Heartbeat Bill. Do you guys remember the Heartbeat Bill? That, conservative legislators in the state, in Pennsylvania Congress, tried to, get passed. And I mean, luckily we have currently a governor who has promised to veto any law that basically would try to restrict abortion rights. Our governor is in his last electable term this year. So our coming gubernatorial election is going to be an important one because we want to, elect someone who's going to uphold these promises.
Right. Right. Because that makes sense what you said. This is essentially the green light for anybody, any state that's on the fence about it. It's like, oh, well, now there is this precedent of like people challenging it and the potential for it to go all the way up. And I think it's interesting what you said about like the super precedent. Is that the term?
Super precedent, yeah.
Super precedent, because I think just common knowledge wise, Roe v. Wade has got to be one of the most well-known decisions ever, right? Like I feel like someone who doesn't know a lot, you can flag Roe v. Wade as a significant, important, and good decision. I mean, obviously now I'm putting my own perspective on it, but I don't know. That's wild to me. And thank you for walking me through it. And I think also this makes sense why it's so hard to find concrete information, because from what you guys are telling me, there really isn't much. Like the fact that everybody is so wishy-washy is the flaw in the problem, and why I can't Google like, will Roe v. Wade be overturned? Like I couldn't find any like good information.
That is the strategy. That is the strategy of these people, to kind of, pull the curtain over it. Just be as wishy-washy as possible.
And like hope that people stop talking about it, because that's what's happened. Like since she was confirmed, it's like, okay, it was like this big on the top of everyone's minds, but this is a good reminder for me to like you said, keep it in the back of your head, because we need to be thinking about it for like the governor's race and things like that. So thank you for walking me through that. I was just like, I felt silly because I didn't understand totally. So I feel good that we're like caught up on that regard, and like you said, good to keep in the back of our minds. So thank you.